We tend to imagine the dinosaurs as the largest creatures to ever walk the earth, but we forget just how large some of our present-day animals loom. These mammoth mammals and wide-winged birds roam unmatched through the land, sea, and sky, and we're going to give them the respect they deserve. Here are giant versions of smaller critters you may be familiar with, as well as imposing animals who have no peer. It's a wide-ranging world that we live in, and the hunt scoured it all for the biggest animals you won't believe exist. Kodiak bear. An isolated species of North American bears, these husky brown-coated mammals keep to themselves on Kodiak Island, off the coast of Alaska. When on all fours, this hairy mammal is just a bit shorter than the average human. At 5 feet, with standing upright on its hind legs, it can reach over 10 feet, making them the largest brown bear and the second largest bear around, next to the polar bear. Their dominating size is thanks to the overabundance of food on Kodiak. With animals, wild berries, mush greenery, and migrating salmon, the bears have an embarrassment of riches all their own. This is best exemplified by the yo-yo diet they experience once freshly awakened from hibernation. According to some reports, their weight can increase upwards of 50%, which is a big deal when they already weigh 1,000 pounds on average. Thanks to the amount of sustenance on this northern wilderness, the Kodiak bears are pretty lazy when it comes to hunting. They only really prey on other animals when they have to. Thankfully, they themselves are safe from outside forces because most of their population falls within the protected Kodiak National Wildlife Refuge. Dalmatian pelican. The largest flying bird, the Dalmatian pelican, is an imposing sight when its wings are fully unfurled. With vibrant white feathers, a barrel chest, a large hissing beak, and wide wingspan, just the noise from its flapping wings would be enough to fill a surprised onlooker with awe. In fact, while gliding over water and looking for fresh fish, it can stretch out to a wingspan of nearly 10 feet. It's not its only oversized feature. Its beak is 3 feet long. Down in Eastern Europe and Russia during the summer months, the Dalmatian pelican takes advantage of its massive flappers when it needs to hightail it out of cold regions and snowbird in the Mediterranean, Indian, and Southeast Asian areas. There, it will feast on whatever delicacies characterize the region, whether it be the local fish, eel, or even worm population. It doesn't necessarily discriminate. It just scoops up whatever it can from the water below and swallows as needed. The lower beak pouch of the Dalmatian pelican is so large that it can store a lot of its catches for a time, swallowing whenever it's hungry. The pelican have life figured out. Who doesn't want to have a basic vending machine attached to their mouth? Doesn't get more convenient than that. Flemish giant rabbit. Sure, Bugs Bunny had personality, but the Flemish giant rabbit would make Elmer Fudd want to catch a different silly rabbit. This giant big-eared freak may look like a normal bunny, but it can often dwarf a medium-sized adult gone. With large brains and a relaxed demeanor, the Flemish giants would make good pets. Why handle with care, as their larger-than-average legs are made for jumping. They have the capacity to kick back and self-defense. Their leg strength, naturally evolved over millions of years, with their size is a rather recent development. First born in northern Europe in the 1500s, the Flemish giant is descended from the stone rabbit and European Patagonia, who were both bred for their fur. As time passed, the breeds were taken to America, and as of the early 1900s, they were primarily sold as pets to affectionate owners. While not as domesticated as dogs, their breeders organized over 100 years ago into a federation and hold a yearly competition known as the Flemish Giant Mashwell Show, with basically a slower and more docile version of the Westminster Kennel Club Show, which is appropriate since these bunny rabbits are slower and more docile versions of our canine companions. Chinese giant salamander. Growing up nearly 4 feet in length, this clingy salamander is the largest amphibian around. Known for its moist skin, the Chinese giant salmon prefers to stay wet and can remain underwater for indefinite periods. Thanks to its porous skin, this epidermis allows it to absorb oxygen while submerged. This ability helps it hunt underwater, and with bad eyesight, it relies on sound and touch to seek out its prey and defend the underwater burrows where its eggs are laid. Treating parenthood like a tag team match, the females lay the eggs in strings of 400 tiny pearl-like beads. The male then replaces the female and guards over all the eggs. Once the hatchlings leave the nest and lose the gills they're born with, they go out into the cold water streams that dominate their habitats in the Chinese highlands. Unfortunately, these critters are considered critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature due to deforestation and hunting, as they're considered a delicacy in the Asian mountains they call home. They're not setting a great example for themselves though, because when they're hungry, they feed on smaller salamanders, in addition to your average crayfish or tiny crustacean. African bush elephant. Of the two African species, the bush elephant is the larger and the biggest land mammal you'll find. throwing an average height of 10.5 feet and 18 feet long. It's the size of a large sprinter van with less storage space. Sadly, its valuable tusks have been a commodity for ages, leading to the illegal poaching of these regal animals. But the tusk is a remarkable feature in these animals, often extending 7.5 feet from the elephant's face and individually weighing between 50 and 100 pounds. The bulk and heft of these protrusions form a great defense for the elephants when protecting themselves, but usually they can rely on their strength in numbers. If you were to come across an African bush elephant in the savannah, you probably would also pass at least 10 others. Since that's the average amount of elephants that can converge in the average herd, they have the potential to join a clan of over 1,000 nomadic elephants. However, as eyewitness reports have indicated in the past, known to cohabitate with other non-threatening mammals, the African bush elephant's only major threat has been the ivory industry. Hopefully, when that is permanently stopped, elephants will be able to live their lives unimpeded. Saltwater crocodile. Indigenous to Asia and Australia, the 23-foot-long saltwater crocodile is a hunter who likes to lurk in the underbrush along the shoreline. Often spotted lazing about, these reptiles spend much of their time conserving their energy, which is healthy since they can go for many weeks without sustenance. But when they are hungry, don't let those stummy legs fool you. They can move in quick bursts, swim at a fast pace thanks to their rudder-like tail, and jump from a submerged spot in a river to snap upward, snatching whatever prey may be on the surface. Following their catch, the crocodiles will snap their powerful jaws shut and perform a roll to throw their prey off balance. With their attacks usually occurring under cover of darkness, and their grayish-brown camouflage skin allows them to pull off the most surprising ambushes. With the ability to seal off their throat so they can open their mouths underwater, they're incredibly adaptable between salt and fresh water. At 1,500 pounds, they'll go wherever the food is. They're basically the kings of swampy, shallow areas, so watch next time you go wading through that part of the world. Red kangaroo. At 5.5 feet tall, with a muscular set of legs and upper body, the red kangaroo makes an imposing sight. As the world's largest marsupial, the red kangaroo can use its natural talents to complete 25-foot-long, 6-foot-high jumps with little wind-up and cover ground at a speed of 35 miles per hour. Equipped with sharp claws and teeth, these big joeys can defend themselves against most perceived threats and insert dominance within their own groups, or mobs as they're called, through boxing matches. Now, it's not boxing in the standard sense. They don't punch each other with their fists or bite each other's ears off. Instead, they put their weight on their tails and kick at each other in powerful succession. Yet, for all their natural talent, they don't become heavyweight champions overnight. Born as scrawny, marble-sized babies, the red kangaroo spends its first 2 months in its mother's pouch. Even after emerging, it still spends the next 8 months diving back into mommy's pouch whenever it perceives a danger. This isn't necessarily the story you want to use for a boxer pre-fight, but hey, even Muhammad Ali needed to start somewhere. Southern elephant seal. When you think of a seal, you probably imagine a cute, dog-like mammal with fins. Able to balance a beach ball in his nose with the greatest of ease, or laugh and clap his fins together like the audience of a stand-up comedy special. Or you might imagine a pop star who sang Kissed by a Rose on the Batman Forever soundtrack. But do you ever picture a 20-foot-long and nearly 9,000-pound monster wriggling its way along Antarctic beaches? That's just what the southern elephant seal looks like. With a knob-like nose and short, sharp teeth, these seals are the largest of all carnivora mammals, which is the same family that includes dogs, wolves, and bears. Almost hunted to extinction once upon a time, their numbers have been revitalized, and these social animals are now thriving between the shores of Antarctica and the Tropic of Capricorn, where they spend 9 months at sea swimming, hunting, and looking for a mate. Although the dating process for females must be difficult, as they can be 6 times smaller than their male counterpart, and the physical appearance of the snout means that there isn't usually a looker in the bunch. Wood bison. One glimpse of the bison and your imagination immediately goes back to the majesty of the Wild West. Before ranchers would corral and transport cattle across long distances, or settlers would pan for gold on the West Coast, wild bison would stand free throughout the Great Plains of North America. The wood bison is the largest land mammal on the entire continent at 6 feet tall, 10 feet long, and 2,000 pounds. But after centuries of hunting, and with a shrinking habitat, the wild wood bison could have become a thing of the past. Mostly confined to Canada and Alaska, the Athabascan tribe made the hunt of these beasts into their livelihood. For millennia, the Native Americans used every part of the wood bison: meat for food, hides for shelter and clothing, and they had a spiritual relationship with the animal. When settlers from far-off lands started making a living in the Americas, the hunting of the wood bison led to the creature's near extinction in the early 1900s. Luckily, a herd of 200 bison was discovered in Canada in the late 50s. With conservationists engaged in bison preservation and monitored breeding, the wood bison is poised to increase its numbers in Canada and will make a grand comeback in the United States. Blue whale. The blue whale is the old faithful of giant animals. At 100 feet in length, it floats comfortably above the competition. In fact, the only other animals that can closely compare in length are other whales. So these large swimming mammals have a monopoly on seafaring size records, and all the power to them. Unlike more territorial orcas, the blue whales are gentler giants who keep to themselves, and outside of surfacing for air, they prefer the privacy that the deep and dark depths can provide. Weighing up to 400,000 pounds, these heavy swimmers hunt schools of krill, small crustacean, often eating 8,000 pounds of krill daily. In order to consume such a large quantity, blue whales, like other baleen whales, have plates of baleen lining their jaws, rather than teeth. When hunting krill, the whales will bulb entire swarms whole. The reeds of thin baleen, similar in hardness to fingernails, will then filter out the seawater, leaving just the krill to be swallowed in the whale's behemoth mouth. And in case you're wondering, whales, like other water-based mammals, drink salt water to survive. Unlike us land-based mammals, blue whales have great and powerful kidneys that can filter the salt out, making ocean water good for consumption.